I'm absolutely delighted to be with Mike Harrison. Mike is a suffragan Bishop of Dunwich with oversight of churches and clergy across the Diocese of St Edmundbury and Ipswich. He's a great colleague in the gospel for all of us church leaders in Ipswich, whatever our denomination or background, and it's always a fab joy to serve alongside him. Bishop Mike, with your unique perspective on the church, both nationally and locally, what do you think the defining question is for the church right now?
Okay, so I think the question for me for the church would be, how do we live into God's promised and preferred future for us? How do we live into God's promised and preferred future for us? Shall I say something about that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, well, the main pushback that I get when I challenge people to follow Jesus' way in prayer, in life, in worship, it's often, I haven't got time. And my suspicion is that this is part of a bigger secular story that we live by, which is a story we're sold all the time in films, in media, and our culture, which we barely notice. And it runs as follows. You're an animal. Clever animal, but nevertheless an animal, the product of time and chance and an explosion in the universe that we can't really explain, but whatever, by sheer luck, you're here. There is no meaning to life other than perhaps propagating the species and survival of the fittest, and yet for some inexplicable reason that we can't explain, we seem to need to have a meaning in life. So we create a meaning, which incidentally causes us huge anxiety because we have to actually choose or make up or pick a meaning. And unsurprisingly, like many historically, we pick pleasure, which becomes the default meaning of life. I just want to feel good and be happy. Some people want to make a dent in the universe, like Steve Jobs. Some people focus in particular on career and family, but by and large, it comes down to pleasure. And of course, then we become enslaved to our unchecked, inconsistent, self-contradicting and exhausting impulses to feel good and enjoy ourselves. And it doesn't seem to have delivered what it's promised, judging by the results. Which brings me back, Simon, to people being too busy. I'm not saying enjoyment is a bad thing. It is a great thing and part of God's gift to us. But do you know how much time people devote to their own entertainment? How much time, for instance, people spend on screens, whether Candy Crush, Netflix, The Crown Season 4, all sorts, hours and hours. No wonder people tell me they've no time to follow Jesus. The pandemic gave more time, but will we just revert as we come out to our busyness? How do we live into God's promised and preferred future instead, is my question.
That's a really poignant question, and I guess gets to the heart of what it means to be human and the struggle of all that it means to be human that you're alluding to. So perhaps as we bring this into land, what would be a couple of clues, a couple of nod and winks to the answer to the question that you're posing?
Well, we'll only find the time once we get a better story than the secular one. The story, for instance, that we are created in the image of God, called to union with a loving creator, that we are unceasing spiritual beings with an eternal destiny in God's new heavens and earth, that actually you're not your past, but your future in Christ, and Jesus has opened that future to you, and you are called to walk with him into that future. That herein lies your dignity, flourishing, and freedom. You are royalty, children of the Most High, called to live into the radiance of life with our beautiful Lord and with a community following that beautiful way. And that seems to me to be God's promised and preferred future that we are to lean into.
What a wonderful encouragement to live into God's better story. Bishop Mike, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.